conversion to HTML5 in internet in e-learning is a must do for the coming days. There's a new idea of governing the internet from on top. When your government wants to control your conduct for your good, the government wants to control everybody else's conduct for your tranquility, for your ease of sleep. If the owners of the land on the internet, the owners of intellectual property, want to control it for your benefit, and it's for you if, like in China now, you're going to have a nice number, you're going to have a rating, like you have a rating in Mercado Libre or in eBay, about how good a client and seller you are. Well, in China, there's now a citizens number that's going to be managed by the equivalents of Facebook and eBay. It's privatized. When we have legislation and treaties like the TPP, which are kept in secret until they are finalized, and we don't know what freedoms will be created or restricted on the management of intellectual property on the internet. This is the framework, I think, that the media framework that we have to educate our citizens now for. It's much more concrete and much more fast than the more general framework that Alain has given us, which I think is an extraordinary way to approach this into a more concrete stage. We are always in convergence. We started having convergence between, let's say, the possibility of doing some telephony or video over the internet, but now we have stages of convergence and disruption. We have every media over every medium. We have new media like 3D printing, drones, robots, artificial intelligence that are quickly taking over silently behind the screen, behind the servers, behind the cloud, and which we have to attend to. This media education has to be faster, has to be based on more. I mean, this for me has only one alternative, which is we need better basic education in science, mathematics, and algorithmic thinking. Computational thinking has to become our #1 priority together with language and mathematics. And our attention is completely defied by these things. The attention cycles are so short now that we have to keep a compass, a brújula on our minds. Disruption, briefly. The theory of disruptive innovation was set forth by Clayton Christensen and others about 7-10 years ago. Basically, in the figure, what you can see is that in the blue line, you have incumbents, companies that already exist, that are doing something, and they are, doing some innovation. But there's a gap, that's the brown shady area marked by 2, which is sustaining of innovation. Is not satisfying consumer needs. And there's someone somewhere, like Google, like Skype, like many other of these private outfits, which start small and which have an innovation which actually responds at a better cost, at a faster pace, with more ease of diffusion, of propagation, the needs of the consumers or customers. And it suddenly makes it useless for the previously existing companies to do their work. There's no clients, there's no business model, there's no earnings for them anymore. So you have #4, which is that these companies may just go broke. And we see it even in the social media scene. For example, today Facebook and Facebook has become a platform for citizenship, among many other things. Not more than 10 years ago, you were nobody if you didn't have a presence in High Five and MySpace, and no one even remembers what those things were now. So we don't know if Facebook, with its 1.5 billion users, with its billion users, will suddenly go away because of its success or because of some bad decision. We're seeing some bad decisions made at LinkedIn, for example, which was an absolute marvel 5 or 6 years ago. They're making some bad decisions about group management, and they may drive the clients away or at least stop their growth for a while. So disruption. This is from the cover and from an article in the MIT's Sloan Management magazine of last month. It's a very recent magazine which keeps up with the trends. And it has 2 meanings of disruption. You can see one of them is reconsidering disruptive innovation, which is the article I just showed a figure from. And the other one is detecting disruptions. And it basically shows a trend that's going to crash. Disruption is within operations. Disruption doesn't mean this disruptive innovation. It just means, crashes, storms. We still are facing this meaning. We have almost a sense of guilt today if you're not doing something disruptive. It's very hard to direct disruption. Disruption happens unless you are aware or unless you're doing it. but we have to be attentive to disruption. We have to be attentive in organizations like the universities or big media companies, that suddenly something in our environment has taken away the floor from under us. Something somewhere happening by a couple of individuals. It may be Coursera, it may be the MOOCs, maybe they're not, but something is taking away our business model, something is taking away our reason to exist. And we may notice that we live on something else. That was Playboy's case. Playboy now has announced that they will stop publishing pictures of full nude women. They have announced that you will now really read it for the articles, as we always said in the 1960s. Oh, I read it because it has all good articles. The education, I'll spend the last 5 minutes on education and disruption, the educational establishment is particularly conservative and resilient to innovation. The education establishment is a very slow engine, large populations, large long-term contracts with society, and it's extremely conservative. Not all innovation is technological. A lot of the innovation happens because of technological facilities, because of empowerments or enablements given by technology, but it's social. The key for the survival of our institutions up to now, if we look at them with a very cold gaze, is extortion. Students have to come to us, they have to pay tuitions, or in the case of universities which have no tuition charge like ours, they still have to be able to secure a place, participate in a contest, and get a seat at the university in order to get credentials. And that's the extortion model that makes us feel so at ease. Universities like ours, and I'm sure many in France, tell themselves, well, we are so substantial and essential for university, for the society. We've been here for 700 years already. What says that we won't be here for other 700 years? Truth is that suddenly we can notice that the floor is being moved away from us, the center is being emptied, and action is happening elsewhere. Not in all schools, not in all professions, of course, but if we look, for example, at engineering, the way that people are hiring programmers now for coding, for doing these innovations with software. Previously, they would hire an engineer and look for them to have a title and to have done a research thesis that was on a very important subject and that gave them substantial dominion over the technique. Later, more recently, they were looking at certifications. Microsoft, Cisco, and all these companies would give them certifications that were not university titles and didn't require them. Right now, what companies are doing to hire a programmer is going to a site called GitHub, which is the repository of programs, of code, and look at what code they have uploaded. So, you know if your programmer is good or not because he has already been doing some programming and you hire him or not, and you hire him part-time. If the programmer says he can deliver something in 6 months, you won't ask him if he's doing some other projects. I mean, if he doesn't sleep, he sleeps 4 hours a day, he may be working on 3 projects at the same time, being part of 3 or 7 virtual companies. You don't ask, you want a result. MOOCs have been an expression of the university, but micro-credentials are not an expression of the university, and they will beat the shit out of us. I'm sorry to say that in that way, but a lot of students will ignore university. They will actually take the best education they can with micro-credentials. They will get jobs on that. And yeah, if they're in medical school or in law school, they will stay close to a university and do what they need to pass the subjects, because they will need a title that still is required by society to work as doctors, to sign prescriptions and to touch patients, or by lawyers, it's required for signing writs before the courts. But even there, we see a lot of students now doing very valuable modern legal work and not caring about having a title, because there's a lawyer that has a title that will sign the writ, but they're getting very well paid. And we have Google's doing these things. So we have to focus, in my opinion, on the affordances of our different media. This is one of the keys to distinguish and to organize media, as Professor Quillandu has already introduced them. You have Twitter that has certain affordances. You have Facebook that has certain affordances. A classroom with a blackboard still has very valuable affordances. They are worthless in the face of other media, and they are extremely valuable if they integrate with other media. We need better organization of our content. We need to be sure who's called a digital native. We also have to be very cynical about our students and about youth whom theoreticians like Prensky tell us that they are digital natives, but honestly, they are not very good at Googling. I mean, if you start a class by writing on the blackboard a Google search, It will be 2 out of 8. That's my experience, at least with freshmen, first-year students at the university. There will be 2 or 3 in a group or 80 that will recognize that as a string. That's for a restricted Google search, that, let's say, that looks for documents in a certain format and only in educational sites, for example. So we have to be sure that we get librarians and everybody else that knows how to manage knowledge, which in Mexico, for example, most of Latin America, librarians are too far away from this in order to be much more effective and bring this disruption to the really fast-paced media education and media usage education that we need, not only for passive consumption or general citizenship, but the actual competitive production of knowledge products in society. Thank you very much.
Gracias, doctor Santi, sobre todo porque ha hecho de esta mesa que sea una expresión, pues al menos multilingüística, ya no solamente multicultural, sino también la expresión en distintas lenguas. Le agradecemos su exposición y vamos a pasar ahora en español con el doctor Víctor Sánchez. ¿En español será? Okay. Con que no sea en alemán.
En chino.
Ahora como en chino ya se está universalizando
ya
también.
Ya no somos políglotas.
Sí. Bueno, gracias. No, pero finalmente es cierto, o sea, en este contexto de Internet, el inglés ahora es...
Pues, bonjour, buenos días. Moi, je voudrais bien faire ma présentation en français parce qu'il y a en français. La plupart du monde ne parle pas français. Alors, je le ferai en espagnol, que c'est plus fluide pour moi. J'espère qu'on arrivera a comprendre ce que je vais exposer. Bueno, yo soy Víctor Germán Sánchez. Yo estudié ingeniería en la UNAM, ingeniería mecánico-eléctrica, no había informática, no había computación. Y después hice la maestría en ciencias de la computación. O sea, pasé de ingeniería a ciencias de la computación y después hice un doctorado en Francia, también en ciencias de la computación, particularmente en redes, sistemas distribuidos, los lenguajes, los nuevos lenguajes para expresar lo que es la distribución, el paralelismo. Es decir, que tengo mis estudios fueron más conceptuales que prácticos. Y digo esto porque todos, cuando abordamos algún tema, pues tiene que ver mucho con lo que estudiamos, ¿no? Del campo en que venimos. Hace más de 15 años yo abordé la educación como tema de investigación y desde luego fue un abordaje desde la computación. Y fue cuando empezaban apenas los sistemas de gestión del conocimiento, los objetos de aprendizaje, apenas empezaban. Y desde luego tenía los elementos para abordarlos y aplicarlos a la educación. Incluso tuve un pequeño proyecto que me patrocinó la UNESCO, lo que llamé el patrimonio del conocimiento, basado en objetos de aprendizaje. Pero era una propuesta computacional. Y hasta que un día me invitaron a la Universidad de Quebec para presentar mi propuesta y dije, así habría que construir el conocimiento, y así había que construir el conocimiento, cuando un pedagogo me dijo, bueno, esa es una de las maneras de construir conocimiento. Entonces ahí me di cuenta que estaba abordando otra área de la ciencia, que es la ciencia de la educación. Es otro, no podía permitirme hacer definiciones sobre educación cuando yo vengo de ciencias de la computación. Desde ahí dije, es un tema interdisciplinario, no lo puedo comprender, no lo puedo abordar si no entiendo más de la educación. Es como lo dijo Alan, o sea, yo sé de medias, ciudadano no sé tanto, y que me aportan igual. Y yo cuando dije, necesito entender más el fenómeno, y fue cuando me empecé a acercar a gente de pedagogía. Digo, explíquenme qué es educación. Yo puedo explicar qué es. Pero incluso ahí no terminó, porque cuando se aborda desde la educación, que es el tema ahorita que quiero abordar, la educación es también eminentemente social. Tiene que ver con la sociología.